Ladies and gentlemen, the next session will begin shortly. Please take your seats.
Hi, everyone, and good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we are actually going to have a very close session. So everyone, if you feel like you want to come forward, I invite you to come forward so we can join in the conversation and discuss about twin transition in the region. So please come forward. And you also have the translators, yeah? So you can use the unit in case you want the translation. And number 7 and 8 for our room. If you want to hear what's happening in the other room, it's 1 and 2, okay? Right. So, so today we are going to talk about something we started last year, right? So in Singapore, we had the M360 event, right? We initiated a conversation about digital and climate twin transition, and we shared some learnings and initial beginning of the Mobile Innovation Hub. So the Mobile Innovation Hub is a project we started in Indonesia as GSMA. You saw M4D. And so we are continuing this discussion to share about what happened in our project and how we have progressed over the year. So that's why we would really appreciate today if you can share your thoughts and ideas as you join the session. Yeah? And to officially welcome us for the session, I invite Rahul. Rahul Shah is the director for M4D for the APAC region. Rahul, over to you.
Thank you, Dulip. Good day to everyone here. I'm Rahul Shah, M4D director for the Asia Pacific region, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this session. We're going to talk about leading APAC towards the digital and climate twin transition. So the APAC region faces a number of challenges, especially climate challenges in terms of like rising sea levels, extreme weather events, water scarcity, heat waves, forest degradation. I mean, this is common to the world, but I think in APAC we have a lot of countries which can be more susceptible to disasters than in other parts of the world. So, for example, last week, Typhoon Saola just raged through the seas and put 30 million people on alert. Luckily, the damage wasn't intense like some of the other ones, but this just goes to show that these events are increasing in frequency and intensity. Uh, on the other hand, countries in APAC are also leading digital transformation. So we have certain expertise here in the region, which can help us to tackle these kind of challenges. For example, in tech hubs like China, India, Singapore, we have they're exploiting the innovation capabilities to uh, in areas of smart grids, energy efficiency, the renewable energy integration into grids, carbon tracking, and transportation and mobility. So, given these unique characteristics and expertise in our region, I think we are well placed to tackle the twin transition using climate action. Uh, Addressing these climate changes, of course, requires commitments. Commitments from governments, from private sector, from civil society. Uh, this is, and these commitments have to be working together. You have to be able to take action together to tackle these challenges. So, as an example, with the support of our partner GIZ, uh, which was commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, the GSMA and GIZ established the Mobile Innovation Hub in Tunisia. And then in 2021, we extended that partnership to Indonesia. We joined the local Digital Transformation Center with a focus on twin transition. The goal of this collaboration was to identify mobile-enabled and digital solutions and innovations that could support Indonesia. So it's an Indonesia-specific project. Indonesia's climate mitigation and adaptation ambitions. And together with the Indonesian government and local stakeholders, the Mobile Innovation Hub has been working across multiple areas at the intersection of mobile, digital innovation, sustainable development, and climate action. Through our partnership with GIZ, the GSMA wishes to encourage more cooperation between countries and collaboration between governments and local industries and private sector to accelerate the twin transition. Today, we'll be hearing from a cross-section of actors who have been leading projects in this initiative under the partnership. To kick off, let me invite to the stage Ibu Reski Damayanti, the Chief Legal and Regulatory Officer of Indosat Ooredoo Hutchinson, one of the leading mobile operators in Indonesia, to deliver the keynote speech. Ibu.
Okay, good day, ladies and gentlemen, and our distinguished panelists for today. It's a pleasure for me to share with you our infinite journey in empowering Indonesia. But before we begin, let me introduce you to Indosat. Indosat was one of the pioneers in telecommunications sector in Indonesia. We established in 1967 and has played significant role in Indonesia telecommunication landscape. In 2002, we merged with Tri Indonesia and has becoming Indosat Ooredoo Hutchinson. So following our mission, we embrace our mission to provide world-class services while connecting and empowering Indonesia. We want to contribute more to advancing the business, society, and environment through the spirit of collaboration. Allow me to share you our ESG pillar. It encompasses three pillars. First is the practicing environmental safeguard. This is our effort to reduce greenhouse gas emission and fostering sustainability. It includes installing solar panel. We change the battery to be more efficient, and we also use intelligent sleep cell in our mobile base station. This effort aims to drive more sustainability future to our industry. The second pillar is about enhancing social impact. We harness the power of digital to uplift the community and bridging people across Indonesia and promoting gender diversity. The last one in our pillar is about responsible corporate governance. In this pillar, we focus in strengthening our data protection system to ensure we align with the highest standard that we strive to uphold. Through this pillar, we are in pursuit of sustainable growth, inclusive future for Indonesia, and creating long-term value for our stakeholder. So then, how do we, as mobile operator, assume more pivotal role in advancing its ESG? And how has this focus shifted the operator responsibility? Much like other operators in the world, we have a role to play in introducing and pushing ESG in our industry. The spotlight of ESG has transformed of our industry, so we have to see more beyond connectivity. We see the impact that we made on environment, society, and good corporate governance. This is not just because of regulatory mandate, but we realize this is the right thing to do for our sustainable future. We have a role to play to create more positive impact. Our ESG is aligned with the government climate goal. It is important as a private sector that we also contribute and see where our ESG fits in the overall goal of the government. Indonesia climate goal consists of 9 elements. Our president realized the importance of Indonesia in the fights against climate change. We have a strategic location in the tropical, and we also have abundant natural resources. Here you can see our climate goal, which consists, among other, peatland restoration, renewable energy development, sustainable agriculture, conservation of blue carbon, and international collaboration. Among this goal, in our first pillar of practicing environmental safeguard, we are aligned in particular with 2 goals. First is the renewable energy, and the second is the conservation of blue carbon. For renewable energy, as mentioned before, our effort lies in reducing energy consumption. But it's just not a corporate action. We're also introducing our employee to a program called Carbon Offset Program. We're providing our employee an app where they can calculate their carbon footprint. The idea is for them to realize how many carbon emissions they have made and what are their efforts to reduce that. Right now, the focus is still on the transportation emission. So hopefully they can change from maybe using a personal vehicle to public transportation. While for conservation effort, at the moment, we engage in environmental preservation in coastal and mangrove ecosystem. This is logical considering we are consisting of 7,000 islands. So currently the program is underway in North Kalimantan. It is a program that we collaborate together with GSMA, Borneo, Tarakan University, GIZ, and local government. In this remarkable opportunity, I'd like to introduce you and share you about the collaboration that we have about the digitalization of mangrove conservation in North Kalimantan. The program aimed to address several issues that we identify. The North Kalimantan area is one of the shrimp producer. The biggest economy is in the shrimp producer. So they have traditionally believed that mangrove impact the productivity. They said because of the mangrove, the quality of the water is causing the declining in the shrimp productivity. This leads to extensive deforestation of mangrove ecosystem. The second problem is that the government, when they try to do a forest restoration initiative, is being challenged because of this belief. So every time they want to do forest restoration program, the shrimp producer who is actually contributing a lot to the economy saying no, because if you're doing the mangrove restoration program, then what happened to our shrimp? So the collaboration introduced the technology and data to the producer and to the government. Using IoT-enabled digital solution, we monitor the pond water quality. The objective, obviously, to improve the productivity while also coexisting with the mangrove. The method effectiveness make it suitable for widespread adoption across various commercial entities, not just for shrimp. therefore ensuring the long-term preservation of mangrove by mitigating large-scale logging activities. You can actually scan the QR code in the screen to get the real-time data of the water quality in the area. So if you don't know, Tarakan is actually in the north part of Indonesia that may be closer to Malaysia than Jakarta. So all the data and dashboard are accessible to the public. It's live and obviously it's powered by Indosat. Another element of this collaboration involves participatory mapping of coastal and marine area using open source, mobile, and geospatial platform. What we also discover is that there are extensive large scale of seaweed cultivation that lead to significant mangrove loss in the area as well. What happened was when the seaweed farmer, they want to harvest, instead of taking the seaweed across the coastal line, they just bringing to the land by cutting the mangrove tree. So it make it more faster and they do the shortcut basically. So the village government require spatial and coastal mapping in order to make it more effective regulation in the area. This is where the GIZ, GSMA, and Indosat conduct mapping training using the key field application to map the coastal and shoreline area, producing digital map that can be independently and regularly updated by the community. The goal is for the regulator and the community can work together to do a preservation of the biodiversity in the area. You can also view the map here. You can scan the code here to see the current map of the mangrove biodiversity in the area. This collaboration in line with our mission of connecting and empowering Indonesia, where we want to contribute more in advancing the business, society, and environment to the spirit of collaboration. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend an invitation to all of you to collaborate, particularly in supporting environmental preservation effort in Indonesia. Indonesia, as you can see, is one of the fourth largest population in the country. Like I mentioned, we have about 17,000 islands, and the agricultural sector only grows 0.34%. There's a huge opportunity of agricultural sector. The country holds immense potential for establishing and operating a sustainable business model that simultaneously promotes environmental and social well-being. Of course, for our industry, this strategic collaboration provides new opportunity, not just in supporting sustainable agriculture business, but also for the government to be more an effective and efficient regulator. Our focus in this project is to create a long-term sustainability, where we can have win-win solution for the business and also for the environment. By showing the financial sustainability of this project, we can create a stage for enduring success and significantly enhance agricultural productivity while reducing environmental degradation. The impact is positive for various stakeholders, including the agriculture industry, the government entity, which can form the basis of strengthening environmental resilience. At Indosat Orido Hutchinson, our ongoing pursuit involves exploring potential opportunity and seeking partners who share our vision, are committed to taking active steps. So let's collaborate. Alone, we can do so little, but together, we can do so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bureski. And it was so important for us to hear from a MNO side, like from a mobile operator side, how you look at sustainable business-related collaborations, right? So we discussed about the opportunity, how digital technology can also contribute to climate resilient solutions. And not only that, but also looking at partnerships we can build across the ecosystem. So now it's my opportunity to welcome our distinguished panel. So what I'm trying to do, as I mentioned earlier, we have a continuation from last year, right? So we started discussing about Mobile Innovation Hub last year in Singapore. And just to remind you what we had shared last year, we have a short video. So what I'll do is I will introduce the panel and then we show the video so you can get an idea in case you didn't join last year, most likely. And so you can see what the study was. So just to explain, when we started the Mobile Innovation Hub, we wanted to understand how climate tech solutions or how digital tech solutions are used for climate projects in Indonesia and why they are not used so much at the moment, right? So that was our objective when we did the study. So you can see a summary of the study in the video, and when we can go into the specific areas and challenges in the discussion. So before taking too much time, let me introduce you to the panel. So we have Daniel Schroeder, who is the head of the Digital Transformation Center in Indonesia. And we also have here with us Jane Revelin. So she's a technical writer and she leads business development in NIRAS International Consulting. We also have from IOH, a very good friend and partner who supports us throughout this project, Pak Mahfud Mazuki. So we are looking forward to have an engaging discussion. As I mentioned, since we have a smaller, close group, we do expect you to participate, ask questions, and join with us in the discussion as well. So here we go. This will give you an idea about the study.
Indonesia is home to 270 million people and is the 8th most significant emitter of global greenhouse gases. The largest contributors to this are forest and other land use, energy, and waste sectors. The country is also vulnerable to flooding, droughts, and rising sea levels. This is intensified by most of the country's dense population living in hazard-prone areas. To address this climate impact, Indonesia aims to reduce emissions by 29% unconditionally and 41% conditionally by 2030, while increasing its capacity to adapt and to build climate resilience. With funding from the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, the GSMA has conducted an in-depth study exploring the opportunities for mobile-enabled solutions to assist Indonesia's climate mitigation and adaptation efforts, leveraging the country's almost 201 million internet users. Through our research, we identified 47 use cases where mobile-enabled climate technology solutions are already in use. 3 distinct barriers were seen to slow down the adoption of mobile solutions in climate projects. 1. Key locations lack connectivity and infrastructure to roll out existing solutions. 2. Complex social, political, and ecological processes hinder collaboration, innovation, and effective policy implementation. 3. A lack of understanding the benefits discourages end users from behavioral change required to implement solutions. To address these barriers, the GSMA is proposing an ecosystem approach that centers mobile-enabled solutions as an integral part of achieving the country's climate goals. We recommend 1. Investing in mobile-enabled connectivity and digital literacy to reach the most rural areas, coupling it with climate tech innovations. 2. Building trust between stakeholders operating in the same ecosystem, creating forums to share learnings, and developing science-based narratives to increase coordination. 3. Build the capacity of public sector and communities as project implementers to optimize the use of mobile-enabled digital technology. 4. Use a human-centered approach to design climate technology, ensuring the value proposition is clear to the end users. Find out more about how mobile-enabled technology can assist Indonesia achieve its climate goals by accessing the full report on our website.
So you can also have an opportunity to download the report here, and we welcome the panelists to come to stage. And there you go. so thanks, Daniel, and Mahfoud and Jane. So we are going to discuss, we are going to have a short discussion about the three challenges. If you were watching the video, you understood that when it comes to digital technology, Indonesia is a leading nation. However, when it comes to using this technology for climate solutions, we have still got a little bit of distance to go. And when we kind of looked into the scenario and understood the intricacies of this ecosystem, we found out that there were three different barriers. Right? So one would be on a technical side, where given the complexities, geography of Indonesia, how it's challenging to reach the communities that are far away. So those ones we identify as the technical barriers. Then there's the political barriers. So political doesn't mean the political groups and everything, but more to do with the coordination and interaction between different groups who manage different topics, like when it comes to natural resource management or renewable energy related different agencies, and the coordination between them or the lack of coordination between them. So that's under the political barrier. However, in areas where the technology has reached the community, the solutions are there for the community, we still see a gap from a behavioral side, where people, we heard from Bu Rizky's presentation, that some people still believe that mangroves actually negatively impact shrimp productivity. So to the level, people have already their traditions and beliefs, and also they do not believe that using digital technology or using your phone might solve a productivity problem in your shrimp farm. So that sort of behavioral adaptation of technology has also been a challenge. So what we did over the last year is to work closely with multiple partners and set up few projects. So you might hear about the few projects today. When we shared about this session, we promised to share live updates. So you already saw some live updates from Bu Rizky's presentation. You saw the map in North Kalimantan. You saw how the IoT sensors are reading the shrimp pond situation or the nutrient levels. So similarly, we are also going to discuss a little bit about the other projects as well. So, and you're not also going to hear more from me. I'm going to be more silent and get the panelists to speak. That's my role, just talking, and the work is actually done by our team. So you can see Deepta over there. So he's the senior market engagement manager doing all the work, and I'm here to talk as usual. So we'll, without taking time, we'll go to Daniel. So Daniel, can you just share with us a little bit about the Digital Transformation Center and what you do there, so that people understand your model, how you work in a country? Maybe what you could do is give an example, take Indonesia as an example, and talk us through how you work.
Yeah, sure. Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for having me, Rahul, Dulip. Yeah, so digital transformation centers are part of a global initiative commissioned by the Federal Ministry of Economic Development and Cooperation and Development. And we are placed in the countries where GIZ is active, so the German Development Corporation is active, to coordinate our contribution to the digital transformation of these countries. We do this alongside the other goals that we have, which are very much focused on the SDGs of the United Nations. And Indonesia specifically, those are climate resilience, renewable energy transition, circular economy, waste management, and vocational training. Those are the focus areas. And we are part of a global project on digital transformation. And we believe that at the core of this way to a digital nation and to a green economy, there's this path of convergence. Yeah? So what we create is, or what we strive to create, are integrated solutions for a human-centered and sustainable digital transformation, leading to a green transition, a twin transition, as we frame it these days. In Indonesia, we partner with the government very heavily, so it's a government-to-government collaboration. We work together with the National Ministry of Strategic Planning and Development, Bappenas, and through this partnering, we also attach to the line ministries who are responsible for these distinct sectors, like energy and waste management and these kind of things. And what we introduce to the mix is digital solutions, but because we believe that these digital solutions essentially scale the impact that you can have in this development cooperation. Yeah, that's what we in general do. We are part of a global network, so it's not only about implementing in Indonesia, but it's also about connecting local, regional, and international players, and creating a more broader and wider impact. And as has been quoted a couple of times across the event, is like, we want to not go for really fast results. We like fast results, but what we want to have is a sustainable solution. Yeah, so it's always called Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah.
And I love that the goals are sustainable, but all the solution that you produce to come there has to be sustainable. And if you don't achieve that, then it's only half the mission accomplished.
Sure, thank you, Daniel. And it's interesting, like if you take a country like Indonesia, where there are many barriers, as we saw, but at the same time, you also have a lot of opportunities when it comes to digitizing or taking these digital solutions across to the communities, or even through the political system, or whoever works on these solutions. So I feel like there's opportunities for us if we work on it in a specific angle and understand the context very well. So in this setting, it would be interesting for us to understand how you work on this setting. Like, how do you help the Indonesian climate goals or the sustainable goals? You mentioned a nice word that, not only the sustainable development goals have to be sustainable, but the approach as well. So how do you do that? If you can share with us your approach on supporting the sustainable and digital goals of Indonesia.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand that the field of economic development and the whole development cooperation scene has changed and has evolved dramatically from being purely technical corporations in the past, now creating integrated solutions, working on societal change and behavioral change as well, and not just producing new infrastructure. So, like I said, it needs to be integrated solutions. And to achieve that, you cannot come to a place and just put something new in there. Yeah? You will not succeed if you just attach something to an existence, or just put something new into an existing system and think that it will strive. That will not work. Yeah? And especially in a country like Indonesia, where there's already so much motion and so much energy in this digitization field. We saw the numbers that Yurisky also showed. Yeah, we have north of 200 million connected people here. Yeah, so, and the connectivity rate, and we had a couple of conversations about this earlier already, is still rising. Yeah? So there's a high level of digital adoption. Payments is all over the place. So you have all this momentum already, and if you put something new in there, it will just sit there and nothing will happen. So the solution is always in these constellations is to attach it to an existing activity. And there are big efforts by the Indonesian government already in place to achieve this digital transformation and a green transition. And responsible for the strategy and strategic development is the Bappenas, the planning ministry. That's also why this is our chosen partner. So what we do is we collaborate with this steering entity and attach ourselves to existing opportunities and start scaling them up. By introducing private sector partnerships and also partnerships with others. We picked a few sectors, again, aligned to the overall development cooperation goals between Germany and Indonesia, focusing on renewable energy transition, waste and circular economy, and that's how we ended up in this. And the collaboration then works from a very interesting perspective, because we work with the strategic planners. And as soon as we move into implementation level, we attach ourselves to existing programs of the line ministries. So if we want to work with startups, the ICT ministry, as we heard yesterday also from Ismail, they have a startup support program. So if we want to support startups, we attach ourselves to this program. Yeah, if we want to do work in renewable energy transition, our partner is EBTKE, yeah, the energy ministry. And this is how all of this works. And so this is the key for us to produce sustainable solutions, not reinventing the wheel, but picking up exactly where something is already there and being very specific and very, very precise on what we inject into this collaboration.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And when it comes to collaborating and connecting communities and addressing the challenge, especially in a country like Indonesia, with the remote islands and last mile connectivity, that always becomes a factor that interlinks between the political barriers that we are talking about, as well as the technical barriers as well. So in this context, how do you see the DTC taking an active role in supporting twin transition?
There's actually, it's a super nice example there, yeah? And you can see it on the slide. There is an issue, especially on remote islands, with last mile connectivity. Yeah? So Indonesia has a very large activity on getting also remote islands connected. There's a dedicated government agency called Bhakti, which is providing wholesale infrastructure, which is then being operated by the MNOs. And they have a program. As soon as they create connectivity, they also have the mandate to produce digital literacy and digital skills workshops. That's exactly one of those overlapping points where we see that Bhakti is producing a new cell tower in a certain area, starting to provide a new service. They're going there and they're doing a digital skills training, and that's exactly one of those points where we latch on. So we go together to Natuna, we identify local community multipliers, who in the community has the smartphone, who has the contract already, who has the knowledge. We invite them, we educate them on the solutions that we want to produce, and we use them as multipliers. So it's always very close to a pentahelix approach where we include R&D, we include private sector, we include public sector, and we include the citizen to create this mix and actually moving things. And the Natuna workshops is a super nice example, which we also did with the GSMA together. Yeah. And there you can see where mobile networks and mobile network operators play such a crucial role in all of these collaborations, because there's no digital transformation happening without MNOs, period. Yeah, nowhere. And that's why it's for us, it's GSZ, so super interesting to be close to the connectivity crowd.
Sure, thank you. And that leads me nicely, as you point out, to mobile network operators. We have Mahfoud here. So would be very keen to understand how you see the opportunity when it comes to projects that are in very remote or rural areas, right? And how you look at twin transition as an MNO. I think we had a very good start with Bu Rizky presenting your vision, right? And we can actually build on it, and would be really keen to understand from you how you look at this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Dulip, and thank you for having me here. Glad to be here. Yeah, some key driver based on the experience as MNO, yeah. The key drivers that we have a successful partnership that effectively address the technical barriers, especially on the, we call it, the last mile connectivity or remote area connectivity. The first is the technology synergy. Why? Because we need to collaborate with the recent technology to build I call it the network resilience, not just the climate resilience, but network resilience, since we understand that the condition and vulnerability in Indonesia is quite often. So not just the remote, but the condition where we have the disaster, extreme weather. Just want to make it sure that all the network and connectivity is sustained. This is the key. So we need to synergy with the current technology. And it's also may bring to the second point of adaptability, where we remain adaptable to the trends of technology and also the customer demand. This is something that, because we are a company or user demand, that we need to understand based on their needs, That's why we call it a human-centered design approach, yeah, because we need that all the solutions should be based on their needs and demand. And I think the most important part is about the building trust in here, that we also need to think about how we can maybe creative the innovative business model. For example, if we look at an alternative business model, such as a revenue sharing model with the local business or cooperative, it also can help us to build long-term network, what we call the network coverage also. I mean, when they think they can get some benefit from our network, then they will support us, because when we build the tower and the things, they will support us. This is something. And the last but not the least, yeah, capacity building, yeah, especially to build the capacity in the technical for local talent. This is quite important for the long-term sustainability of our partnership. That's it for me.
Thank you. And I think it'll be great if you can share with us an example of how you work on these kind of projects, right? And talk to us about what you have shared, like why you did this, why Indosat, like our IOH took this initiative to partner and work with the community and work with us as well. So it would be really cool if you can share a small example with us.
Yeah. The program that already introduced by Ibu Reski, I had a key speech. I will show you. I mean, we show you the video from our program in the North Kalimantan to get more detail on it. Let's take a look.
Selamat datang di Desa Setabu. Desa yang terletak di Kecamatan Sebatik Barat, Kabupaten Nunukan, Kalimantan Utara. Desa Setabu menjadi salah satu desa terluar di Indonesia yang memiliki lahan mangrove di sepanjang pesisir pantai.
Awal desa kita ini memang banyak bergerak di bidang pertanian dan perkebunan. Sejak tahun 2008 banyak yang beralih menjadi rumput laut. Hampir 80% masyarakat saya di sini terjun di rumput laut. Mangrove kita ini tahun kemarin sebelum ada rumput laut jauh terjaga lah. Nah sekarang dengan adanya rumput laut ini, para budidaya ini perlu pantai jemur, tambatan perahu nelayan, lahan pemukiman. Inilah banyak merambat lahan-lahan mangrove kita sendiri. Nah, lahan mangrove kita ini terbagi 3 zona lah Pak. Ada zona konservasi, ada zona wisata mangrove kita, ada zona pemanfaatan. Nah, pemanfaatan inilah yang belum terkendali, artinya belum ada pengaturan baik dari desa, kecamatan maupun kabupaten maupun provinsi. Nah, ini kekhawatiran kita, mangrove kita sepanjang pantai bisa habis.
Oleh karena itu, GSMA bersama Indosat Ooredoo Hutchison dan GIZ membentuk kemitraan untuk memberikan solusi digital akan masalah mangrove tersebut.
Solusi digital digunakan untuk pemetaan mangrove di daerah pantai dan pesisir untuk mengidentifikasi keberadaan mangrove serta mengidentifikasi faktor-faktor yang mungkin akan mengancam dari keberadaan mangrove tersebut. Pemetaan ini dilakukan secara partisipatif bersama dengan warga dengan menggunakan teknologi Mobile Geospatial Solutions.
Dengan teknologi Mobile Geospatial Solutions, kita dapat melihat bahwa penggunaan smartphone dapat digunakan secara positif untuk memetakan wilayah mangrove, memonitor kesehatan mangrove, dan juga membantu pendataan luas wilayah dan ekosistem lain di sekitar mangrove. Solusi digital berbasis teknologi IoT juga kami perkenalkan kepada petambak udang tradisional agar dapat memantau kualitas air tambak seperti temperatur air, tingkat keasaman, pH, salinitas, dan lain-lain. Semua ini dapat dipantau secara online dan mobile.
Melalui program ini, kami ingin menunjukkan bahwa teknologi, solusi, dan industri telekomunikasi dapat menjadi leading sector untuk membantu warga melakukan mitigasi dan juga beradaptasi terhadap perubahan iklim baik yang ada di Indonesia maupun yang ada di dunia.
Jadi kita harap dengan adanya pemetaan ini baik laut kita maupun mangrove kita kelihatan seberapa sih keluasan mangrove kita yang tersisa. Nah, yang tersisa inilah yang kita mau kita jaga, dan yang sudah terpakai bagaimana kita manfaatkan semaksimal mungkin.
Mangrove berperan penting terhadap kebersihan air, tanah, dan udara di sekitarnya. Hal ini menjaga bumi dari pemanasan global dan perubahan iklim. Melestarikan mangrove akan mendukung kehidupan yang lebih baik untuk saat ini dan masa depan. Selamatkan mangrove, selamatkan bumi.
Yeah, this is the video from the program. And then one thing that I need to highlight that the collaboration is the key. When we know that the local government needs something that maybe want to make sure the area they have, but then they don't know, maybe just because they don't know the technology that can solve or address their problem, then based on our collaboration, then we show them there are technology that help them at least to understand the situation and the real time, at the real time. That's it, I think.
Sure, thank you. And I have an additional question, since I saw you're coming from more of a sustainability team, more CSR team. So do you look at this project as a CSR project or a project that goes beyond CSR? How do you see the business sustainability opportunity in this sort of projects?
Yes, for sure. We cannot just realize we cannot just rely this as like CSR means charity things. Yeah. Be honest with you that currently this program, even though just on the first stage of launch, we already get the interest from the business association, where they want to have that kind of technology for their own company. Even though they say they need more reliability rather than just as kind of like a trial product, IoT solution for trial. They really want it can be installed and be long-term solution for them. So that's why this is one of the what we call the showcase for the B2B segment of our business. Yeah, when we show this is a success story, then the B2B team from Indosat will also take this as a success story for promoting to another partner, another business, or even government now looking for this kind of solution to mapping the current situation of water quality around that area, around this provincial area. So I think this is the way how we look for the sustainability work, sustainability of our operation, business, and for the future is especially on the B2B segment. So this is kind of showcasing, and then we can make it as a new promotion for solution, B2B solution. And if you see the impact from the program, the government now can make like a semi-regulation based on the solution that we share, and it can be scaled up for other area, especially Indonesia, quite a large area with the mangrove area. That's it.
Sure, and I think it's interesting you mentioned that in the Setabu village where we did the project, one of the key challenges was you heard from the Desa Kapala, the village head, that they are struggling to restrict or to set boundaries of which areas to cut, which areas not to cut. And this project has been only implemented, let's say, 2 or 3 months. But we hear from the village that they already managed to use the map and to set a semi-regulation where the village head can say, hey, you can't cut any mangroves or clear any mangroves in these areas. So he has a live update, and this is all mapped with the participatory mapping, right? So this is where the community joined in the mapping, so they also get a little bit of awareness about the project. They understand the value of mangroves. So it's all within the community itself, which I see as a great opportunity, looking into the resources we have across the region as well. So with that note, I think I like to go back to Daniel, if you don't mind, on a question that is very tricky, right? So we talk about political barriers in the region, and how, where do you see the main problem lies, and how do you see us working as TTC and a mobile operator addressing this political barrier when it comes to climate challenges?
Yeah, so it's a tricky question, of course, because my role is always I somewhat represent a foreign government. Yeah, so I work for a foreign government. So you always have to tread a little bit careful when you make these kind of statements because they have direct impact on the picture that the citizen has from your own government. Yeah, so you have to be a bit, yeah, they call it officially it's diplomatic. Yeah, but you have to be a bit sensitive to all this. Take this with a grain of salt. So it's an observation, but it's also known by the Indonesian government. The biggest challenge on a political level here is not creating regulations or putting policies in place. It's about the actual critical thing is about aligning the interest of different political players, of different line ministries, bringing them in line and creating joint solutions. Yeah, so communication is the biggest political problem actually in there. So line ministries that are responsible for some part of energy or forestry, and then there's the energy guys that have different interests. So making them talk with each other and creating joint proposals and policy in this specific area is maybe the biggest political challenge that there is. And that brings me back to why we are attached to the Ministry of Strategic Planning. Because we then enter the stage as a somewhat neutral agent, and that's also how we are perceived by many. So I can walk into many ministries without having any reservations from them, because I work with Bappenas, so there's somewhat okay-ish. There's not a lot of beef between the most line ministries and Bappenas. Yeah, other line ministries, they're not so happy with each other. Yeah, that's just the reality of the political landscapes, not only in Indonesia. In Germany, it's the same story, and I guess in every other country, there's some sort of friction always between these sectors. So I guess that's one of the biggest political hurdles there, and being a somewhat neutral player, and also taking care that you collaborate with a private sector entity that is also perceived as a somewhat neutral player or a key enabler in terms of infrastructure and, like in this case, mobile connectivity. It enables you to transition across political parties, across political players, regional government, local government, federal government, and then you can basically start influencing this machinery and start overcoming these barriers.
Thank you so much. And when we talk about the third barrier, right? So when we go into the behavioral barrier, how do we make people make changes in their lifestyles? That becomes a very tricky process. And in projects, it's very important to measure them or understand what sort of change we have caused. So that's where Jane comes in. And it would be great if you can just talk to us about how and what kind of role NIRAS International played in this project, and why it is important when it comes to projects like understanding the behavioral change.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, GSMA, for having us. So what NIRAS Consulting does in this particular project is that we are invited, given the opportunity, to examine, to find evidences of changes in 3 specific programs that GSMA implemented. One you have seen is in Satabu, in North Kalimantan. The other ones are in Riau, that is in Natuna Islands, where the program focuses more on educating people on digital technology and using smartphones, and how do you best use smartphones for your daily lives as fishermen, as people in the rural villages. And the last one is quite different. The last one is working with the government, specifically the Department of Environment and Forestry in Bali, on mapping out waste solutions digitally. So that's generally what we have been doing for the last 9 months. We've been visiting these sites using quantifiable and actually qualitative methodologies to find the changes that we can observe from these societies, from all manners of societies, using a system integration approach. So we examine not only people in the villages, but also the governments and everyone that is involved, right? So one of the overall behavioral changes that we managed to find out is the increased believability and usability of digital solutions and information that comes from actually having access to smartphones for their daily lives. For example, in Natuna, where there's a lot of fishermen, usually they just use whatever that they have in terms of local knowledge, like observing the skies or observing the wind, to know when to go out to the sea, when to come back from the sea. Right now, what these programs have enabled them is to give them solutions with scientific evidences through digital technology, that they can look at the apps and understand, oh, there's going to be rainfall today, or oh, there's going to be strong winds today, and that's how they can adjust their activities in sea. This is extremely important for them, because right now it's getting more difficult for local people to adapt to the changes of climate impacts in these regions, right? So it's getting more and more dangerous for their livelihoods. And now with these type of interventions, they have reliable information that they can obtain, to do their daily activities. So to some extent, it is enabling them to perform their economy better, but can also be quite life-saving, if you think about it, if you want to go that far. So that's the type of behavioral changes that we observe, not only in one site, but all sites, just in different levels of engagement, because we also have government in Bali as well. So I think that will be the overall in terms of behavior changes.
Great. And when we talk about, so that's why Niras had the most challenging task in quantifying this. We don't just want to have a project where we talk about just the qualitative change, but we wanted to understand where has the bar moved from where. So we have done baseline studies for all the projects, endline studies for all the projects, even though they are short-term, and we would have the information available. So that's why Niras team had their we had to stretch them to the maximum to make sure like all the measurements are there, interviews are done with participants. So in all that, we try to understand, are these projects commercially viable? Are they sustainable in some way? And where are the learnings? So I'll ask this question in a very complex way. You can answer in a very simple way. So have you seen these projects to be commercially viable? Have you seen any sustainability angle in these projects? And within that, if you think about what is the most compelling thing or most awesome thing you've seen in MIH projects so far?
I understand, because there's a lot of partners here. A question of how are these things commercially viable for investors to come in. So obviously there's a lot of untapped landscapes in Indonesia if you talk about last mile societies. And these are societies that desires to have better connectivity and to have the capacity for them to perform better economies in these areas. For example, access to e-commerce would be one of them. We see this evidences happening in Natuna, where the women in the villages are very happy to now that they understand, oh, this is what they can do with their smartphones in terms of selling their food and selling their crafts outside of their region. And these are the type of commercially viable activities that we believe that partners can tap into in the long run, understanding that Indonesia is going to experience a lot of changes. We're planning to move capital, for example, and that means that there's going to be a lot of shifts in economic activities. So having outreach in these regions could be very commercially viable if you can have a point of entry in terms of mobile usability and digital technology to people that haven't had that access yet. And specifically in Bali, it's a bit different, but that there's also desire for us to have more better digital solutions for a lot of problems in our environment. There was a waste in Bali, particularly was a waste that data collection issue. So that is also something that we've seen a lot of startups, a lot of companies trying to tap into, for example, e-fisheries and digital waste solutions. So these are also parts of and points of entries that can be commercially viable. We have, as mentioned, 17,000 islands, so that's a lot of area to cover. So of course, a lot of these successes of these programs, a lot of the data that you can collect from these programs, you can apply a lot of these, multiply it in different areas, and that's why the program can be very commercially viable, especially when we've seen successes of people actually using information, actually using mobile connectivity for their daily lives. Now on to, kind of sustainable solutions. And I've mentioned this previously on how people use these information that they get, from digital solutions to have better livelihood. And I'll connect this to kind of the story and the evidence that we have from Satabu, which you've seen over and over, and because it is quite a success story. What we have to understand is that these people understand, the people in the village know that cutting down mangrove trees is wrong. They might not understand the science behind it, they don't understand the technology behind it, they don't understand climate change in definition, but they know it's wrong. And there's in Satabu specifically, there is a local champion that has been fighting, or at least kind of arguing with all other villages against mangrove cutting down mangrove trees for a decade or so. And this person named Pak Adli in Indonesian has rally community leaders to protect mangrove in the Stabu village. The problem is once these community leaders get old and they, either they passed away or they move on or they move to other villages, they, this Padli, the champion of mangrove protection, has lost, resources to fight against the increasing, seaweed farming in the area, and that's why you see the devastation that has happened. So what GSMA program and what these interventions enables is that it gives not only scientific evidences and information for local champions to kind of pursue the protection of these areas, but also it brings in experts and people from outside of the region to back them up. And this is one of the most compelling stories we've seen so far, how they now, local champions, local adaptation champions, feel encouraged by the intervention of technology, by these programs to move forward with the cause of climate sustainability. And we hope that it encourages partners to also look at other areas where they can you can tap into to have these stories with you, because they're truly compelling how you're able to help bottom up without waiting for government interventions, and at the same time encourage governments to also rally with these programs, because the people that are championing these programs are not from external parties but from people inside the villages whom you trust. If you are other local villages in the area, you would trust them better than you would trust government entities or foreigners coming into the land. So I believe that connecting in the interest of saving time, that would be why we think that this is very helpful.
Absolutely. That's very nicely put and explained. So thank you, Jane. Thank you, Daniel and Mahfoud. So I think it's time to open for any questions the audience have. Anything you wanted to check or clarify on any projects, any specific project you want more details about, feel free. We are open, and we can have, because it's a kind of smaller group, we can have open conversation. We have 15 minutes remaining, so that's a good time for us to have a good conversation. I think our colleague is ready with the mic in case you want. Yeah, I see you already. We have a colleague from Globe in the Philippines, where mangroves conservation is very critical as well. So Rafael, over to you.
Hi, good morning. I'd like to ask how you handled this situation when, because in the Philippines, we have a scenario wherein we are very strong in conservation, especially in mangrove conservation. We have several partners, such as the Zoological Society of London in the Philippines. GIZ is also present there. But one of our challenges is that we are still trying to find a way to sell that idea of conservation to investors. Globe is already invested in that space because we understand the value of sustainability and the value of carbon sequestration and how it affects and how it provides benefits for the entire community. But how about for the other companies who are still starting their journey of conservation and sustainability? How do you bridge that gap and sell that idea of conservation to other companies, given that one of the challenges as well is that there's a problem, there's no specific law or foundation that computes carbon in that specific country. So I'm interested to know your thoughts. It doesn't have to be similar to our country, but maybe we can replicate it as well in the Philippines or in Southeast Asia.
Absolutely, Daniel. You want
I will try to. I don't know if I can answer your question, but I just thoughts on that. So, part of first of all establishing this, and this is something you probably know, is to get the buy-in from the people on the ground is giving some sort of benefit, other than the benefit that you are actually looking for. Yeah. So for them, it's basically keeping the environment upright. I mean, in this case, it's the same, but in other areas, it's basically them having better profit from fishing, and at the same time we get the data to use it. What I think the key to get these investors is developing the right business models for them to be also commercial viable. And that might be a business model that is based on a side product of the actual intervention. Yeah, so we spoke about participatory mapping. We have another project where we run participatory mapping. It's in the field of high carbon stock approach. I don't know if you know that. It's basically using geospatial data and machine learning to assert the carbon stock value of certain forest areas. This is, of course, for coal mining companies, it's super uninteresting in the first view. But when you explain to them that you can use this data to plan reforestation and post-coal mining activities, and then can market that on the carbon stock market or in new future land planning activities, then it becomes interesting for them, and they start getting engaged, investing in the conversation period. So it's a very far stretch in the end, yeah. So, and it's rather complex business models that we see developing. We don't have many of those in place. There are quite a few that are there. I know a few that are active in Africa, where they basically collect the data from the community based on conservation, and basically then sell the data, what's happening, or putting the data into a secondary. So the secondary product is actually what makes the business case of the investor entity that makes it interesting for them. So that's what I see in one cases. And in other cases, it's for us specifically, it's the regulatory effort of the European Union, for example. Yeah. So non-timber forest products is one of those examples. You cannot import that stuff to the European Union if it's not certified. Yeah. And that becomes all of a sudden becomes business important. It has an importance for your business case, because you cannot distribute your product to the European Union if you don't take care of adhering to certain rules and regulations. That's what I see in this field. Yeah, but it's a tricky one. It's like downstreaming innovation. Yeah, it's the same problematic situation.
You want to add anything, or you're good, Mahfud?
Maybe just a quick, based on the experience that we found in Stabu area, for example, the local government and local people are willing to have they want to know how many producers are, how many they want to know the total economic potential they have by knowing the total product that they do, but they don't get any data. By that, I mean the industry should be the investor and the operators of the industry should be share the data to the local government. This is, I mean, I just want to know that the what we call the push should come from the local, where the investors are operating the business. I think this is come from the experience that we had in Stabu, yeah. And from that, the company, a lot of companies need to, if they want to extend or they expanding the area when they want to operating, they need to report to the local government. Even though now if we found the law or the regulation, it's not really clear about that. But since the local government demand on it and require on it for the operation, it come the company, the investor should have that kind of information to share.
Sure. Thank you, Profil. You're good. And any other questions? Any thoughts from the audience? Yeah. Any thoughts? Any follow-ups to the projects we shared or anything like that? No? But I until you think of a question, or if you want to, clarify something, I can also check a couple of things I wanted to from the discussion. So one is on maybe, when we based our discussion today on the key challenges we saw, right? So maybe thought, okay, We did a landscaping study. We mapped out all the technology use cases and see why these have worked, why these haven't worked, or why other projects haven't worked. So those are the three barriers. So I'm interested to know, based on your very diverse experience and organizations and work, are we missing any barrier in specifically in the region? Are we not looking at any other area that is also a challenge based on your experience, or have we got these three segments well mapped out? What do you think? I'll start with the monitoring and evaluation person first. So because they would have measured things and have a lot of data. At the moment, like, we have enough data, so the team is working out the end lines and baselines and everything. So Jane should know everything numbers wise. So I'll start with you.
And test. Right. It's a lot of pressure. But no, I'll try to make it simple because I don't want to bore people with statistics, because we do have statistics, and if the report is going to be available, please feel free to read that. But kind of the two biggest challenges that we observed, one is, this is specifically from our program in Bali, is, as mentioned, there is a lot of interest from a lot of local startups, a lot of local companies, tech companies, to venture into digital solutions for sustainability. And oftentimes they overlap, and this is the case that happened in Bali. They overlap, the government looks into various different examples from different case studies, and then there's a lot of interventions from different programs, and then there's startups, and then there's local startups. So there's a lot of data already there. But there's not a lot of kind of knowledge sharing, and this is what the danger of this is, intervention fatigue. There is a possibility from people from these regions to start being tired of interventions, to start not wanting to collaborate by the sheer number of it. And we've seen this happen in a lot of different projects in Indonesia. So perhaps one of the key things that needs, perhaps GSMA, like this forum, can answer is, collaborating with more and more, actors, local actors, international actors, to share their knowledge, so that we only need to fill in gaps and not overwhelm local communities with various different interventions that might not be necessary. And that's the first one that we observed, that has a huge potential. And the second one would be, as observed in the story, oftentimes a lot of these desegregation of environment is for economic benefits for the people, right? They want to destroy mangrove because they need seaweed, because they need to sell, because they need to eat. And this is the same story that we see happen over and over again in various different regions. So what is the commercial viability? When we talked about, having a commercial viable ecosystem that benefits both, the investors and local communities, in order for it to make it sustainable, perhaps more detail should be observed in how these interventions benefits both parties economically, right? And have that explained to local societies on how these things can also benefit you in the long run. And perhaps that explanation is something that can be filled, with of course the scaling up and the continuation of the program. Right now it is just mapping. Perhaps societies have not really understand it yet. What are the long-term economic benefits for them? But perhaps that's something to be considered as well for GSMA and partners and other partners, if you want to, reach last-mile societies. I think that would be for me.
Thank you. Very valid points. Mahfud, anything from your side?
Yeah, I just want to add maybe one thing that I think important, especially for the technology company, is the scalability. Scalability means that anything that we provide, or the solution that we share, should be accommodate the growing of population, the growing of demands from the people. This is something that maybe also the next step of our program, that we think we want to see, is there any possibility to extend and scale up all these things with the same model, or we need to also flexible with the current situation of the different area. Maybe we see the Kalimantan quite similar, what we call the area, where maybe they have not really deep sea, but then for other island like Sumatra or maybe in Papua is quite a bit different. This is something that I think we need to also consider this to be more flexible and adaptable with the current situation, to make it the solution is scale up, can be scale up.
Yeah.
That's for me.
Sure. Daniel, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I like the point that Jane brought up is knowledge management and dissemination of knowledge, especially about these interventions, and that's I think one of the boundaries that I also learned in the last 18 or so months that I've been active in Indonesia is that what one of the key boundaries, and this might not be, I mean it's a bit specific to Indonesia, but it's also true for many different other regions, that the density of the network of these innovators and change makers is something that you have to have a very good look at. Because that's also where Indonesia is struggling, because you have a very high density of these people in Jakarta and maybe in Bali, yeah. But then as soon as you move out of these areas, yeah, the network density is diminishes very, very quickly, and you rely on that to distribute this knowledge. And that's something that's like one of the key barriers is like you need to figure out what is the network that is there in existence and which network can I elevate to a new level. That's I think one of the very important thing that I think is also an active barrier. And the other thing I also want to attach what you said about the economic viability, and that's a bit also to the question that we had earlier, is one important thing of all of this is also to educate and give these people the skills to come up with these solutions by themselves. So new business models only are sustainable in communities if they can be replicated by the people that are on the ground. Yeah, so I have to give you the tools. I have to teach you how to find new business models. So seaweed is the one ingredient, and they have to discover a new product out of that. And what we want to do is educate them how to discover these products. Yeah, so old story: teach a man how to fish and give him fish. Yeah, but that's exactly one of the key barriers when it comes to behavioral change. I think that we have to take very good care of.
Yeah, exactly. And also just, I think we talked quite a bit about the projects that we have conducted for Mobile Innovation Hub. So one of the projects that we didn't touch too much, but Jane mentioned, is on the waste management. Right. So when it comes to the project, just to set context in the next 30 seconds, so we worked in Denpasar city of Bali Island, and in the city we tried to help the local government to increase waste data management, right? So because they want to do a fantastic dashboard that helps them to monitor the waste, see how the waste is collected, but the base of the problem is the waste data collection from the waste management centers or waste collection centers. So we tried to help, and as Jane highlighted, we already saw, initially we thought, okay, with GIZ partnership, with GSMA and a mobile operator, we'll provide them a tech solution, right? We bring a solution and give them, hey guys, this is the best one. But when we went in there, we see that they already have not only one, but many, multiple solutions existing there, one after the other. There are so many apps that they have tried out, and people download it, use it for a week or two, then don't use it. Or there are apps that people really like. You know, there's a government agency, new appointee coming in with new ideas, getting an app. Hey guys, here you go. And then that app doesn't work after a while. So when we went for the waste management solution, we thought, okay, we will help you to work out and improving your system and improving your digital system so that your waste collection can improve. So that's our approach. However, as the team knows and we know, because of that approach, it's been more challenging. Right? It would have been easier for us to say, we introduced a new solution and it's done. It didn't work after a month. But improving the system, getting people to change their system so that it's streamlined, it's working, it's updated, is becoming a massive challenge. So I guess that's where we are looking at when we look at scaling it to the other parts, scaling it to the region. How can we learn from others? How can we learn from Mobile Innovation Hub in Indonesia? How can we learn from the other projects we hear across in M360 these days? And how can we take it forward so that we learn from others and improve what we have, rather than just helicopter solutions coming into country or region. So with that question, I would like to point to the QR code once more so that we will guide you to our webpage where the projects you can read about, and also a massive, massive thank you to all of you, and especially for our implementation partner, Daniel and the team, and also our colleagues in Germany, as well as very special thanks to IOH, who's an essential support, and almost like, you know, we are in the same team. Everyone sees them as GSMA and us as IOH, right? So it works so closely, and also to Niras, who's been an amazing support working on quantifying this. So if you want to know more, we'll be around, and it's lunch break now, so feel free to come to us and ask. I don't know much, but you can ask Deepta about the projects, yeah? So thank you very much, and have a very good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, please return your interpretation headsets to a member of staff. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as you leave, please ensure you take all of your belongings with you.